taken on a lot more clients, and
Hmm.
it's been super awesome since. But it just started with me sitting I'm in my basement right now because my kids are asleep upstairs,
Yeah, yeah,
and I just was sitting at my desk and was like, all right, let's do it. I'll just put my camera
beautiful,
literally on my desk and let's see what
beautiful.
happens. So yeah,
Beautiful. Love it. No,
yeah,
I love it. That's just hey, look, this is the Audacious Living Podcast. So jumping into that abyss
yeah,
of unknown is what we specialize here in. So I love to
yeah,
hear that's exactly what you did, which
yeah.
is absolutely amazing. Truly appreciate you spending time out of your day with us. Today we're diving into the topic that's pivotal for your professional journey. It's the importance of being proactive about your career advancement rather than waiting for those annual reviews to assess your overall growth. I want you for a second to think of your career as a vibrant garden. If you simply wait for the flowers to bloom at the end of the season, you might miss out on the opportunity to nurture and cultivate them throughout the year because it is an ongoing process. Think of a gardener. They actively tend to their plants. And you need to do the same and take the same initiative to reflect on your personal fulfillment. Set structured campaigns for your career goals and build meaningful relationships within your organization. Confidence and intentionality are critical in navigating your path and overcoming any obstacles that might come your way. Today's guest is Nate Dinet. He is a seasoned career strategist and a thought leader in the field of professional development. With several years of experience, Nate has helped countless individuals take charge of their careers and achieve remarkable success. Nate is not only an expert in self-reflection and personal fulfillment, but also a firm believer in treating one's career as a structured campaign. This perspective has garnered him recognition as a trusted advisor to many professionals who are looking to elevate their career. He had a number of great insights and wonderful logic to share with us, and I'm certain that you'll all appreciate what he's got to say. So without any further ado, let's turn to our conversation with Nate. Enjoy. Hey, Nate, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this, my friend.
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate the opportunity.
As we said before we went live here, it's always great to be able to connect and share with other individuals and as we were just saying that if one person kind of walks away with a nugget of insight that takes their life to a better level, if you will, right, then I'm thrilled at being able to opportunity to share this. So I guess really what I should be doing is thanking you for helping me complete my mission, right? So thank you for being here again. I really do appreciate that.
No, thank you, like, for having me. It's fantastic. I love it when two people that can be, you know, that have different passions and motivations can come together and mutually have a message to share. And I totally agree. If there's one person out there that benefits from this, then that's a win for me.
Okay, well, let's jump into it and see who we can inspire.
Let's
Here on
do
this
it.
podcast, we share and talk a lot about that best audacious life, and I think a really important piece of that is understanding that we're all on our own individual pathways, and the journey is not going to look the exact same for each and every single one of us, and so the direction I go down, what's destined for me is meant for me, and vice versa. I think an important thing to understand is so as we go along this journey, that we're going to have obstacles, we're going to have bumps, we're going to have all sorts of things that might deter us or shake us. But it's incumbent on us to sort of to weather the storm, if you will, and continue forward. And I can even very much like it to those that are looking to grow their own careers, which is sort of your area of specialty. I don't think anyone's career, or there could be some maybe that's linear that goes straight up, right? I mean, there's
Right.
some that kind of, up, down, up, down. I don't know, mine's all over the place, right? And zigzags. And so, that's kind of where you step in and with some support, help, and guidance. And so maybe as a starting point, Nate, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and share a little bit about the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, I'm Nate, and I'm the CEO of the Set Manager. And what we do at the Set Manager is almost, like what you said at the beginning there, is that we help people I don't know if it's taking crazy bold risks or being super audacious, but it's definitely trying to navigate what their next step is in their
Hmm.
career. And oftentimes for them, it does feel like they're being bold and they're being they have a lot of confidence, and that's a lot of what I help people with, at least initially, is developing that internal confidence that they do belong where they are, or they're ready to take that next step. And really what I specialize with people, the professionals specifically, and um, is helping them either get promoted or get the raise that they should get, or helping new line managers or people managers really get a solid foundation of who they want to be as a manager, and how they can help set up their team for scale. So I do,
Hmm.
I've been in the corporate world for 15 plus years. I started a long time ago in tech and consulting, and through that journey I was exposed to a lot of different very cool projects, and one of the most pivotal projects that I was a part of was back in 2016. I was a part of a team that looked at the dynamic between the manager and the individual contributor, and that
Okay.
was back during a time when, for those that are in technology, that was back during a time when if you were a software engineer, you could walk into a job and then 10 days later walk into another one for 20% more salary, because it was the employees market. I would say you were
Mm-hmm.
in such high demand that there was a ton of volunteer turnover and a ton of attrition, and companies just didn't know how to handle it. So, we were brought in to try to help study the relationship between the two to help make it better. And at the end of it, we read out exactly the things that were contributing to the high volume of turnover, pay being one of the bigger ones. Line managers having literally no training at all to help their employees develop, and then individual contributors having to rely on what they called at the time of internal systems versus or implied systems versus actual career growth to be able to get up. And the company, I remember that they came back and said, "This is great. We appreciate it, but we need you to make a corporate culture deck based on our values." And so the project kind of died. And then, but at that time, I was like, "Oh man, this is such good information that I don't think it should just die here." So I took it to my own thing. That's when the Step Manager was born. So in 2017, I published my first course on how to be a good project manager, product manager, and then
Hmm.
how to get a raise in corporate America. And since then, I've had 48,000 students worldwide, and have
Wow.
started to take on people that are really interested in, like, the promotion is a nice aspect of it, but they're really more importantly, like, I just want to feel like I belong, and I want to have the confidence that I can get up to that next level, because most of the times their line manager is totally absent, or they're totally not involved, and it kind of sucks to not have anybody there
Sure.
to help
Yep.
them develop their career. So that's how I got there, or that's where I got where I'm at now, and I'm helping clients get up to that next level, or be the best manager they possibly can be. And more times than not, it has to do with starting with them. What does fulfillment look like for them, and what does confidence look like for them, and we go after it. So I'm really very fortunate, because I tell all my clients, like, you're watching a guy live his dream, because I love to help people grow. That's where my passion is. So it's a great time. I love it.
I love the way it sounds first and foremost, right? Helping people fulfill their dreams, and
Yeah.
um, I'm glad you touched on sort of the confidence piece of it, which is great. I actually kind of want to go back if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Tell me
yeah.
about how the name the Step Manager came about.
Yeah. So I originally, it started because I fashion myself like a little bit of a jokester. I have a pretty dry sense of humor. And originally I thought about it as that standard trope of, if there's a kid at the end of the driveway waiting for his paternal father to come pick him up and take him to the game, and his dad, blows him off and doesn't take him to the game, and then his stepdad comes out and says, "Hey son, let's go play catch in the yard." So it's like that trope was how I started. It was the joke is that it's not the manager you get to pick, or it's the manager you get to pick is the step manager. And but realistically now, it's kind of blossomed into this thing where I help you figure out your next step. So
Hmm.
there's another play on words there with, like, let's figure out your next step in your career, whether it's you want to get promoted, you want to leave your job and find a better one, or a lot of my clients oftentimes realize that, they're playing the game internally in corporate, and that's not at all what they want to be doing.
Hmm.
And they prefer to set up their own, starts as a side hustle, which is like the new, or like
Yes.
the in term for
Yes.
basically being
Yes.
an entrepreneur, and then it turns into something crazy as being an entrepreneur. So I've had a lot of clients take a lot of different journeys. And that's where the name started. Yeah, started as my own stupid humor, and blossomed into something that was actually nice.
Um, I'm always curious. So first of all, I think it's very creative, and it made me smile, and so I think you did a good job there. I'm always curious about um, uh, that pivotal moment, right? Sometimes we reach this moment in our career that really, it's like I go to door A or door B, right? And you
Yep.
pick that door, and that door launches you kind of in the direction you're going. Was there kind of a moment with you, like a sort of pivotal instance where you're, hey, like if I go here, maybe this can take me here, and step manager is born, and off it goes. It was something like that for you.
Yeah, so I think I've had a lot of those, right?
Okay.
And
Oh, good.
they're if and I guess it's fortunate that I've had those kind of moments of deciding to go A or B. And I'll say that the first one was that moment when I remember reading out the presentation, reading out the insights, and the next steps were us to create some curriculum to help line managers be better people managers, or help define some of the best practices for individual contributors to be able to move up. And ultimately, it kind of died. And I remember saying, like, man, I feel like this it shouldn't like it this shouldn't just go into a folder onto a SharePoint drive for
Mm,
the next 25 years until somebody eventually deletes it because they don't remember what the project is for. So that's when I took it, and I remember being in a hotel room when I was on site. I was traveling on site to talk to the client, one of the biggest financial institutions in the world, and I was in my hotel room. Just I opened up my laptop and I was like, all right, let's do this. So I pulled up the PowerPoint, and I started just speaking into my camera, and without really a plan in place, I just kind of threw it all together. And I found at the time a platform called Udemy, which has since grown insane.
okay.
And I put it on there, and kind of the rest was history from that. And then that was a crazy moment, but then I've also been a consultant for a while, and I've always been in technology, or doing various roles. So from 2017 really until about 2.5 years ago, it was always kind of on the side. I was listening to what my my clients and the students that were taking the program, and I would like try to get their feedback and improve courses and come up with new various different modules that I had been learning and
Hmm.
trying to improve. And then a couple of years ago, I was given the opportunity to kind of step back in my career and say, okay, what do I want to be doing, as opposed to I was on kind of a path to continue to grow and have a really great trajectory, and ultimately made the decision to say, okay, I want to spend more of my time doing what I'm really interested in, which is helping people grow their career. And took a little bit of a risk and stepped away from a crazy trajectory at a really large organization, and decided to go full tilt at my own as a set manager. So lots of decisions in play there, lots of reasons that came to it. But ultimately, I'm super glad that it happened, and I went down the path of going after this full time, and at least making
Mm,
a run after it, because
mm.
I definitely would have felt like it would have been a regret had I not.
Sure.
And that's like the
Sure.
most cliche thing anybody can say ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
true. Like I definitely would have been like, God damn, I wish what could have happened,
Yep.
and I'm super glad that I found out that this is what could happen.
So I'd love to know, where did you start? Where did you start first?
The first thing I started with was I honestly, I again, it was just kind of, I took a risk, and I started to talk about the dynamic of crappy management, crappy managers, and I started recording on my TikTok, and I was like, all right, I didn't have a TikTok channel, and at the time I was like, it was my younger cousins were on it, and I literally didn't know what it was. It was like I was an old man at that point in time, and I was not that old, but I felt like it was a foreign place for me. And one of my good buddies, John, who is he's amazing in his own content. He's got like a couple million followers over his platform. He's like, just post on something, just see what happens. So he kind of encouraged me to get out there, and I started
Just
to
do it.
just do it. Exactly. And I went after it, and that snowballed into taking on to really reinvesting in the content that my existing customers were on, and then taking on clients more on a one-on-one dynamic, because I realized that
Mhm.
was what I really enjoyed, is being able to have a conversation like you and I are having and saying, okay, let's figure out what motivates you. Let's figure out where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, where opportunities and threats, and we'll do all that
Yep.
stuff, and we'll craft a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and we use that as our campaign to get you promoted, or we'll use that as our campaign to help your direct reports feel better about your management style. And since a couple of years ago, it was it's snowballed into taking on a lot more clients, and
Hmm.
it's been super awesome since. But it just started with me sitting I'm in my basement right now because my kids are asleep upstairs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just was sitting at my desk and was like, all right, let's do it. I'll just put my camera
Beautiful.
literally on my desk and let's see what
Beautiful.
happens. So yeah,
Beautiful. Love it. No,
yeah,
I love it. That's just hey, look, this is the Audacious Living Podcast. So jumping into the abyss
yeah,
of unknown is what we specialize here in. So I love to
yeah,
hear that's exactly what you did, which
yeah,
is absolutely amazing. Um, let's sort of talk about the importance of having a plan. Um, uh, I don't know because haven't looked at the numbers, but I'm very curious. Like the number of people actually don't have one, and sort of I think sometimes there's a belief that it'll just come when it's supposed to. It'll what you're supposed to get, you're supposed to get. So for example, I think of someone who's sort of maybe you're a high achiever and you're waiting on a promotion to come, let's say hypothetically,
yes,
right? And and
yep,
and sometimes it can, right? Sometimes it can just sort of appear magically,
yep.
but I think a lot of times a plan of some sort really needs to be in place. I wonder if you could comment on just the significance of just of planning for your
Yeah, for
career.
sure. I think that's exactly what a lot of my clients or people that in corporate experience, they sort of, it's not that they expect it, but there's just, you've always kind of been told like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do good work and good things will happen to me. And one thing is that 70% of your career trajectory at any given moment in time is up to and almost the sole responsibility of your line manager. And
Okay.
if you don't have a good relationship with your line manager, or your line manager is not somebody that's good at what they do, then you're kind of stuck. And a lot of people are in that spot. So what I call it is, let's be purposeful and intentional about how we have our own approach to your next step in your career. So the planning that we focus on, as you mentioned, is I call it a campaign a lot, and it kind of throws people. It's like, why the hell are you saying campaign? But
Hmm.
it really is like I think about it as like you are a candidate, that you have to kind of take that mentality of, you're somebody that's going to get promoted internally. You have to kind of adopt this, I'm here for a reason. You have a certain number of things that you hit, talking points that you hit, your contributions that you talk to and speak to, and then you have a very specific plan of, if your line manager is super engaged and you guys have a really good relationship, there's one approach there. Or if your line manager is nowhere to be found and is not engaged, or is maybe a negative person and an influence in your life at your job, then there's another approach that we take. And either way, to your point, we have a purposeful development pathway over a 30, 60, 90-day period, so that you can come to the equation, make your case as to who you are, and why you deserve to be in the role that you're getting, or the raise that you should get, or whatever. And more times than not, it walks out positively for them. So you kind of turn it on, and this framework or blueprint or whatever you want to call it, that's inside of the program that I referred to, is called the promotion accelerator, is a really good framework for you to be purposeful and intentional about something that is intangible, and ultimately is usually a decision by a committee or whatever. And it'll help you in tons of different ways throughout your career. It'll help you obviously with getting promoted, but it's also, if you're trying to launch a new project, get new clients,
Right.
whatever. This is a very applicable framework to be able to handle some of those like challenging and
Yeah.
relationship driven um, things that you encounter in your career.
And yeah, I mean the idea of running your career like a campaign.
Yep.
I think everyone understands that concept. I guess more around how do you do that, right? Is there sort of a clear path how what that looks like, and how do you run it like a
Yeah,
campaign?
definitely. So we start the first 30 days is really heavy on self-reflection and self-awareness. So
Okay.
we start a lot with what is, and it's kind of a weird saying of what is your fulfillment, but what drives you? What are your motivators? Because I want to know what your long-term, interests are. And sometimes the client's like, why the hell are we talking about this? I just want to get a promotion. But it's helpful for us to set those long-term visionary aspects of saying, what are the things that you love? What are the
Hmm.
things that you're good at? What interests you, et cetera, so that that is always at our North Star. So for example, if you get an opportunity, and you get promoted, but it's in direct contrast with what the things that you do that are interesting,
Right.
we know we can make a purposeful or an intentional decision to say, hey, the things that I like to do, I might not be able to do that in this new role. So I'm going to have to figure out what the consequences of that decision are. Either way, we start with that fulfillment the first 30 days. And then on top of that, we start with what are your, like I mentioned, where are your strengths? And really specifically, I have them fill out this every week. I have them fill out this form. And if you're a professional listening to this, do this every week because it will help you either on your resume or also help you internally at your role. Is I call it the CARA method, CARA, which is current activities, responsibilities, and above and beyond. So
Okay.
every week, spend 30 minutes, bullet points. What are your current activities? What are your responsibilities? And where have you gone above and beyond? Because
Wow.
that will form our sort of like we'll latch onto a couple different really key things that you've done and form your I've made great contributions to this major project, to this major
Yep.
initiative, et cetera, et cetera. And that the first 30 days really becomes about self-reflection and awareness. And we build that base. So your stump speech of what you're going to say consistently. The second set of 30
Stump
days.
speech, by the way. I
Yeah,
love that. I love
stump
that. Your
speech. Yeah,
stump speech.
exactly.
That's awesome.
These are the points that you're going to hit over and over and over again. And we're really going to, and it's the objective here kind of bleeds into the next phase where I don't want you talking about stuff that no one cares about because a lot of people will unfortunately like you'll latch onto something like I've been here for 7 years, which is great. That's very good, but that doesn't necessarily help you. So
Right.
let's talk about what's gonna actually influence
Sure. What have you
decision
done in
making.
7 years, right?
Yeah, yeah. How have you made these contributions, and what do people care about? And then we talk about your orientation or your relationship within the organization of okay, what's your line manager like, as I've mentioned, and then more importantly, what stakeholders and what a lot of people refer to them as like the centers of influence. What centers of influence in your organization are you closest to? So if you're at, for example, if you're at an organization that is a software as a service or you build and you acquire clients on a software platform, more times than not, the center of influence for that is going to be your sales organization. So how are you oriented towards a sales leader? And how can we develop a purposeful relationship with a sales leader so that when it comes time to start talking about who's really contributing at a high level, who's making the right kind of noise internally, that sales leader is going to say, you know what, that person's doing it, or you are doing it, so that your name can be advocated on your behalf when you're not in the room. So that the second 30 days is we're going to align all your great contributions to what people care about in the organization. And that's with
Mm-hmm.
your line manager and with those stakeholders. And
Gotcha.
really crafting those like key relationship development
I
activities,
love that.
different things that you can be focusing on during that time while you're also contributing and consistently hitting at a high level. And then finally, the sort of the last phase is like, okay, let's actually do this. Let's actually be intentional
Right.
and say,
Right.
hey, how am I going to ask or how am I going to craft this discussion? And one of the things that we do during this process is I have them take a personality test. I use Clifton Strengths, the Strength Finder
Okay.
personality test, which reveals to them, hey, here are the core strengths that you have and how you approach your life, your work, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we work on a personalized narrative to this like all important discussion, which is, by the way, is not a one and done. You never walk into a room and say, I want to raise, here's what it is. Congratulations, you're done. It's always an ongoing discussion that takes
Yes.
place
Yes.
usually in the last the last 6 weeks of the 30, 60, 90-day plan is where you would be intentional and say, I know that I'm making high contributions in XYZ area. I'd like to revisit my compensation structure, and we have a good conversation about that. It doesn't have to be right now, but I'd really like to have another conversation about that. So you give them the warning that say, hey, I'm interested in that, and then you can have a constructive conversation over a period of time, so that over the course of 2 to 3 meetings, you walk out with what they can do for you.
Gotcha.
And that's the last phase of this is really positioning, and more times than not, it's like negotiation. We talk a lot about how can you present yourself, how can you have confidence in your ask, and to give people that confidence, I have a what's called a state of your role report, where
Okay.
I do salary benchmarking based on your tenure, based on your location, and all that stuff. So you could literally have in black and white your like we've already worked on your stump speech. You already have the relationships in hand. You already know what you should be paid and what you should be asking for. So all it's left to do is for you to walk in the room and do it. And
Gotcha.
that's like the high level process from beginning to end.
Well, it's an important one, and I'm glad you were as thorough with it as possible because you really get to see it. This is a cerebral process, very
Yep.
very clear, and very the first that comes to mind. I go, wow, like it's like step by step. And I think too, what I also find interesting is kind of as you're going through, so it gives you an opportunity to hone in very specifically on what it is that you want. Right? It's simple
Yep.
to say I want a career or I just want to be in management, but you I think when you get there, it's fantastic to have an idea of the direction that you really want to go in to carve it out like it's your own, right? And that's what I'm hearing through this process allows a little bit of that, which is fantastic. Um,
Definitely.
you talked well, you just mentioned a moment ago about raise and promotions, and that's always an interesting topic because it's something people are either comfortable with or they're not, right? It's
Yep.
never kind of a middle ground. I guess I'm kind of curious about maybe sort of common mistakes that maybe people make when it comes to sort of asking for a raise or a promotion. Is there maybe a way that they can avoid some of the pitfalls?
Yeah, there's definitely some areas where people might a lot of times it has to do with their confidence, I would say. A lot of
Mm,
times, I had a really great sales leader one time when I was working in consulting, and he would say, "Let's, don't sell yourself out of a deal," right? And you can a lot of times people will if they walk into the room, they feel motivated and they feel confident to say, X thing, or this is the number, and then as soon as there's a pregnant pause in the conversation or something, they meet a little bit of adversity, they'll back off immediately. And that is a constant, like, oh, I don't think I deserve this, so maybe I shouldn't ask for that. Or there's that trepidation that they experience, like, did I really do enough to go in there and ask for it? So I think that's why we focus a lot on what are the foundational elements, so that I can always kind of come back and remind them and saying, yes, you should be at the conversation. You should be here. This is you do have justification for asking for more money. You can really land that. So I think that's an important place, is that you don't have to assume that you haven't done enough. You don't have to sell yourself out of a deal. You don't have to sell yourself out of a promotion. And then the other biggest mistake I would say, just like very tactically, is that do not full stop, do not wait until the annual review cycle, because everyone
mm,
has an annual review cycle. And that's kind of like when people start talking about promotions, and you're like, I could, maybe this year is the year that I'll get it. um if you're waiting until the annual review cycle, it's already too late. So
mm,
don't rely on that schedule as the mechanism to help drive you forward, because if you are, then and it's likely not going to take place. You have to be proactive against it. You have to be leading up into it, because
yep.
more times than not, managers come into that room, they already know the play. They already know what's going to happen. They already know who's going to get the raise, who's going to get the promotion. It's already happened a couple weeks or a couple months before, so you really need to be proactive about it. So it's definitely not something that you should go in and that's an area that I think is a common place for people, where they get tripped up a little bit, is they just expect that to be the process, and they shouldn't talk about it until then, which I encourage them, absolutely do not. Let's be prepared, and let's talk about it beforehand.
The waiting, that whole like waiting, maybe this day will come, maybe this is my year kind of a thing. And I don't at all want to be offensive, but it sounds so kind of wishy-washy, right? Like, are you
Yeah,
if you're taking control of your career and you're grabbing the bull by the horns and steering the direction we want to go, or you're letting life just happen? And so what you're, everything up in this point, what I'm hearing clearly from you is you're not, you're being proactive. You're not letting life happen. You are taking control. And again, I'm hearing that loud and clear from you. Career stagnation is a big one, right? Like, and I think
Yep.
that I think this sort of leads nice to what we're just talking about, right? Like, it is very possible to be stagnating career, maybe because you're waiting for that one day to happen, right? Maybe
Yep.
this is my
Yep.
year, this is my year. Okay, no, maybe we'll wait till next year, right? It could be that, or it could be maybe there's another cause to it, or maybe you're not prepared. Maybe there isn't a plan.
Hmm.
I wonder if you sort of can talk about career sort of career stagnation and what people need to do to sort of, I guess, when they're feeling stuck, 'cause that's really what it is. It's a stuckness feeling, right? And so, and
Yep.
how do you manage that feeling of being stuck in your career?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people hit that spot, and I usually like to ask them, like, let's take a week and self-reflect. Let's
Okay,
take a week and figure out, like, if you are feeling stuck, one of my favorite activities to do is the five whys. Is you are feeling stuck, why? Well, because of the fact that I haven't really done anything meaningful at my office. Well, why is that the case? Well, because I don't have a great team that I'm on, or the position that I'm on is kind of odd. Well, why is that? Because we got shunted around, and now I don't have a great relationship with anybody internally, and I'm kind of stuck in a corner. And you keep asking yourself these whys, like the five whys, to get down to what you think the root cause is. It's a form of root cause analysis,
sure.
and you can do that activity to really self-reflect and figure out why why you're there, why you're feeling that way, and you can have a suspicion as to really what's the root cause of feeling stuck. Is it because you haven't gotten recognized? Is it because you're on a crappy team? Is it because you don't like the people that you're working with? Is it because you don't like the organization you're working with? Whatever those problems are, it's good to self-reflect, and as an immediate tool, you can figure out, okay, what does this feeling that I'm having really mean, and what is the root cause behind it? And I find that if you can identify the root cause, then you can be way more intentional as to what you do next about it. Because a lot of times people will, they'll feel stuck in their career, and they don't really realize that they're in the wrong career in the first place. And
Right,
they just say, oh, I've been passed up on promotions. I should be making $10,000 more a year than what I'm making now, and I'm
right.
I'm mad about it. It's like, okay, that's fine. Like, I can appreciate that. However, is your next step really the one that you are so hell bent on, or are you way more interested? Are you going to be burnt out in another 6 weeks if you get this next step? So it's really important to kind of understand, why you're feeling stuck, and if it is really because you have gotten ignored, or if you have a bad dynamic internally, or if you are a high performer and it just hasn't happened, then let's talk. Let's figure that out, because there's a path forward for you there. But a lot of times that stagnation comes from not really, or kind of just like stepping through, life, or stepping through without having, like you said, like, what path am I on here, and what am I building towards? And the last little piece of this I'll say is that it is totally okay if your path is, I want to clock in and clock out. I think that's totally fine. If you are interested in clocking in and clocking out and just having a job that you can go in and do, I respect that. And I want you to be focused. Then usually what that means is that they have a very active outside of work life. And that's
Mm,
beautiful. You don't have to, so many, like, with all, like, the social media and everything around us, we constantly are sort of barraged with grow, 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 and ascend, and make millions, and all this other stuff, which is like, sure, like, I can respect that, and that's great. However, if that's not for you, and you just want to be able to have, like, clock out at 5 p.m. and go watch your kids play baseball, that's great. Like, that's totally fine. And if that's what you want to do, then I respect that. Let's be intentional about what you're prioritizing in life, and
yes.
it always starts with that reflection, whether it's stagnation that you're feeling, or whether it's that, what is my next step. Let's think about it. Let's take a moment with yourself, and figure out what that really is.
And it's so easy to fall in that trap, Nate. It really, really is. Like
Yep.
to be to like comfort can happen really, really quickly,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And then it
Yep.
feels nice and
Yep.
it's relaxing. And then also too, there's a part where you're in a job or you're in a role, and you maybe you reach that level of job mastery, let's just say, right?
Yep. Yep.
um there were some who, because this is where the confidence comes in. So you talk about confidence. The confidence comes in where, like, I know my job, I'm good at, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. But there is still a line between, being really comfortable and that point of stagnation, right? Like, it's a
Hmm.
really fine line between the two. And I think recognizing that when you're there is really, really important.
Yep. Yep. No, that's very true. Being like I'm all for I'm all for the comfort zone and living in that. If that's really what if that what is your end state is, and you're comfortable in that, then fantastic. If you've reached the aspirations of where you want to go, then fantastic. But let's figure out if that's the case, if that's where you want to be. And more times than not, everyone has like a vision of themselves. It's just whether or not we can tap into it and prove it to you that you can go after it. And
Mm.
most of the time, people there's like an arbitrary wall between what they think is possible and what their goals are. And we should try to shatter that wall, man, because usually people put this unnecessary boundary on themselves that is pretty arbitrary. More times than not, like again, I talk about confidence all the time, and it's very easy for me to say, "Oh, you should just be more confident." But let's figure out what are the things that you can anchor that in, and let's determine where you get your confidence from, and continuously build that up so that you go after. Like I am now stuck. I'm now stagnated. Let's go after the next step. Let's go crush it if that's what you want to do, and we can absolutely find the pathway forward on that.
You spend some time focusing on kind of like middle managers and like individual contributors a little bit, in
Yep.
terms of so their next steps and where they go. So I'm curious, one, why focus there, and then
Mhm.
two, in terms of sort of challenges, the biggest challenges they face, what would you identify those as being? A couple.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody and everyone and their mother is an executive coach, more or
Yeah.
less, and there's a lot of support for the executives in the room, and
Right.
which is fantastic. Like that's great. Once you get to that executive level, I know a lot of great executive coaches that can help you there, but I noticed that there's no one at the individual contributor or line
Okay.
manager level,
Hmm.
and that exclusively focuses on that group. And that's where I exclusively focus, because one, they're under supported, and two, there's so much meaningful interaction that takes place at that time so that you are
Yep.
prepared for an executive career. So you can walk it like you can come into it as an executive. And reason sort of why is that a lot of times as an individual contributor or even as a line manager, there's a lot of trepidation, or there's a lot of interactions that are very challenging for people. They have really strong intuition, or they're very good at what they do, and they meet resistance just because of their position in the organization. So how do we shift your strengths and utilize your strengths in a way that allows you to continue to influence and hone those strengths so that you don't chuck them away and ultimately miss out on relying on those strengths and those best practices that you have within yourself when you do become an executive. So um, that's a lot of the reason why I focus there, and that's a lot of the reason why I like to spend my time there, because it's such a pivotal moment of like, hey, you're ascending to this great next step, or you're ascending as a really high contributor. Let's make sure that your trajectory is as rocketed as possible. And that's for on the individual contributor side, and for line managers, they're the line managers of the world just kind of get their teeth kicked in from all angles. Every day they get it from. It's very difficult to manage people because people are they have their individuals. They want to have a growth plan. They have challenges and interpersonal conflicts, and all of that does come up to the line manager to a certain degree. And also the role of the organization has grown over the last 50 years, whereas people 50 years ago, they could come in and clock out, and their job was their job, their workplace was their workplace. But now because company culture is such an important thing, it is actually like an identity to certain people. So there's a lot of responsibility placed on management and line management to be able to handle that expectation of saying, hey, you are, I'm responsible for your growth plan, and I'm responsible for helping you get up to your next step in your career. And managers aren't equipped to do that. They've gotten no support, from their company to do that. More times than not,
Mm,
they got promoted because they're great at their technical skill. So they're very proficient, or they have really high quality at whatever their technical skill set is. If you're a developer, you're the best at coding. If whatever that is, if you're a marketer, you're great at marketing, and you get the promotion because you're great at it. But then all of a sudden, the expectation, or the thinking at the director and senior VP level is like, oh, this person's great at what they do.
yep.
They can make others great at what they do. So we're gonna let them trial by fire by just giving them a promotion.
Yeah.
And and
They were good
that's
at job A, so they must be
yeah,
a great
they
manager,
must be
right?
great at that. Yeah, exactly. So it's hilarious to me how little support there is, and
Yes, yes,
there's a
yes.
lot of challenges in that area. Like a lot of times now, which is fascinating is that people will get promoted to a management layer, and their superior will sort of be biggest the biggest reason why they face challenges.
Okay.
Like meaning that the superior will oftentimes not respect their boundaries, not respect, their expectations, and usurp process. And there's so much time ultimately that you have to do, that I spend a lot of time is like, how do we manage up? It's not the individual contributors that report to them
Right.
that are the problem. It's the managing up. Like, how do you
Yes.
handle a crazy director, or how do you handle somebody that is just totally like a
Right.
sociopath? How do you deal with
Yep.
that? So
That's right.
it's that's a lot of the areas that we focus on.
Gotcha. No, and I think so many can relate to that. But particularly with again those man we joked about, but there really is, managers are individuals who are promoted into management because they're good at this particular job,
Yep.
not recognizing that managers an entirely different job altogether, and so they're learning on the job, and who
Yep.
knows what again the chaos is being created in the meantime while they figure out themselves, and that could be a year or 2 years, like it could who knows how long that takes, and so that support I think is critical and important.
Yep.
Nate,
No,
real,
it's huge.
yeah, yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, no, really, I can see it loud and clear. And I think many people have been in that, right? So they can relate and understand. Like, I was given this job, I had no support and I had to figure it out, right? And,
Yep.
I burned some bridges and damaged some relationships and caused chaos. But yeah, I learned a job, right? And so,
Yep.
what's the cost? So I think that's what we're talking about. I'd love to kind of get your take on sort of, uh, uh, so when you look at the landscape of work, and how technology is coming to play, the rise of even remote working, right? Like here we're having a
Hmm.
conversation, we're two different countries and we're having a conversation. How if is do you see how that can impact, just career advancement, or at least the landscape of career advancement?
Totally. And it has, because of that globalization, remote work, and technology really has made it a global playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be in London and apply for a job in San Francisco. The time zones would suck, but you can do that. A lot of companies are now global, or they have satellite offices globally, so they
Yep.
can hire people globally. And really that takes a lot of, and I think that the economy is like kind of seizing at that moment in time right now, or the job market rather, because a lot of people are unfortunately looking for their next thing. They got cut out, or they got let go, because of downsizing or uncertainty or whatever, and they're still trying to find that next step. And it's very, it is a very challenging time for certain roles, in the job market right now. And a lot of that is because of globalization. A lot of that is because it makes it a lot easier to hire people wherever you can find that talent. It doesn't have to be in a geographical location anymore.
Right.
People used to move to cities because you wanted to get a city job, or you move to an area because you wanted to get into a specific industry. Like, near me is Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's heavy on iron manufacturing, or iron, steel manufacturers. And you would move to that city to get a good job at a factory, and that's the reason why. And you could do it because it was geographically located. And now one, manufacturing aside, but now you don't have to be geographically located anywhere, which is
Right.
now kind of even on its head again as companies are shifting back to coming back to office policies and all that
Right.
nonsense. But and I think the other elephant in the room is AI.
You got
Everyone
it.
uses AI constantly. Everyone is spending a lot of time learning how to understand and leverage AI as efficiently as possible. And there's always that joke of like, oh, AI is going to replace me in 6 months, which I don't think we'll get there. Because I don't think we'll totally get there immediately.
Hmm.
But there is a lot of uncertainty. There is a lot of impact on it, and I think it will become more of a tool than it will be a replacement for people. But it's definitely something that has impacted the job market.
Sure.
So it is a crazy time to be an employee and a crazy time to be hiring people
Right.
because there's a lot of globalization and
For sure.
advantages to it. Yep.
For sure. No, absolutely. No, I get you can see it. It's right in front of us. Everything you talk about is right in front of us, right there. We're
Yep.
managing already, right? And so what does that mean as as we think of our careers? Because again, the other part about this is too is the ability to establish relationships. It's slightly different now, right? Like before you
Yep.
could hang out with the water cooler and chit chat and maybe go by someone's desk and talk about their weekend activities and what they did and start building up and blossom relationships. Not that it can't happen online with someone in
Yeah.
another country. It's just different, right? And
Yeah.
so I think those are all key aspects of what we're talking about. Um, so for all Nate, this has been fabulous conversation. I really appreciate you having you on the podcast. And one last sort of question I want to ask is, that final piece of advice that you'd give to professionals who sort of are eager to take those next steps or take that next step in their career, but maybe they're unsure about how to proceed.
Yeah. I would say you could find me. I'm happy to talk to them about it. Like you can find me at thestepmanager.com or on LinkedIn. You can type in the step manager and something of mine will come up. But outside of that, the next step, like I said, I'll hit it again. Usually, let's prioritize and let's figure out what growth means to you. What does fulfillment mean for you? What makes you happy about your current role? What doesn't make you happy? And
Yep.
and if the next step is in line, or if what makes you happy is in line with that next step, fantastic. If not, then let's figure out what your exploration framework will be so that you can test out different things and you can make the most out of your life, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, right? Like you get, for all we know is that you get a shot at it and then, that's it. So let's not, let's not waste it spending time and being concerned about, if this is the next step, let's go after it, let's do it, let's figure out, let's try things out and let's see what comes out on the other end. So that's I would say, spend the time figuring that out, what your motivators are, and then quickly go after it.
In other words, plan, plan, plan. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yes, purposeful, intentional steps forward. Yeah. Look within yourself and then make the next step.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Nate, we're going to make sure that your contact details are available for our listeners. We'll put that in the show notes so people can access you. They certainly can do so. I would encourage them to, if you're at that point where you're kind of looking around going, what's next? And
Yep.
I think I've always been a big fan of that question, what's next? Because that opens the doors for all kinds of possibilities. And so, if you're at that point in your career, I think, and that's what you need to, you need to kind of blue sky it out and go, okay, so what is next? What is at my reach or where I'm trying to go? But again, as you said, be very, very intentional about that. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate the insights. And again, this has been a fabulous chat. And thanks for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
No, thank you for having me, and it's great to be here. So I appreciate it.
Back we are here on the podcast. Our chat with Nate, he shared some invaluable insights on self-reflection as a foundation for growth, the importance of understanding organizational dynamics, and practical strategies for building relationships that can propel your career forward. What I really loved about this conversation with Nate, once we got going, it was just a matter in which he attacked it head on and was very direct with it. I think I perfectly encapsulate the essence of taking charge of your professional journey. I encourage encourage you to connect with Nate directly if you can, and you can certainly find his contact details in the show notes below. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share if you haven't already done so. Of course, your support helps us grow and reach even more individuals eager to live audaciously. Remember, your career is your campaign, so take charge of it. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and living boldly. Stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.